Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be 6 or so. Be at home. It's a warm day, sunny, shining through the windows. My mum is upstairs doing laundry. I'm sitting on the stairs, looking through the banister gaps into the hallway, waiting for my mum to finish so we can go pick up my sister from school. I look over at my kitchen doorway. Standing there was what I later learned, like 14 years later, was a shadow person. It was wearing a brown monk robe, hood up, but no face. It was just pure black. I remember looking at where its feet should have poked through the robe bottom, but there was nothing there, not even blackness, shadow. I apparently, according to my mum who will testify for this, started talking to it. I think I said, "Hello, who are you?" or some shit. My mum suddenly rushes out of the room and asks me who I'm talking to. I looked up at her, pointed to where the man was standing and said, "That man there." I looked back and it had gone. My mum asked me if I had opened the door and let anybody in. I said no, that I couldn't reach the door security latch bolt thing. I probably could have, but I didn't open it anyway. She asks if I'm sure there is nobody in the house who shouldn't be, and I say no. We went to pick up my sister. Mum says I've seen a ghost. The reason she says this turns out to be because she saw a ghost in the house when we moved here. She didn't tell me this until like 2 months ago. I'm 27 now, still at home. I'm seriously ill with various problems, long story. She said she didn't tell me to not spook me out, but I forced her to tell me 2 months ago or whatever. Anyway, back to the original story. I didn't think much of it, thought it was kinda cool. But from then on, practically every night, I was awoken by something. I can't remember what awoke me at the time, but I asked my mum, dad, sister what I said at the time, and apparently it's this. I said somebody was walking up to my bedroom doorway. Just the footsteps. My bedroom had carpet but my hallway was wood. So I heard somebody walking on the wood, which would stop as they got to my bedroom door entrance. I slept with the door open. I would get out of bed, go into my parents' bedroom and get in with them. I complained about people bumping into me, or sounding like they were coming up the stairs as I did it. Nobody was there. This went on for years. My dad got really pissed off as it'd make him get out of bed and go into the spare room for space. He was a doctor, so thought it was rubbish, but also a religious guy, hilariously. Got so fed up with me lying, he made me have a psych evaluation, off the record, and the doctor said, "Yeah, he's not making this up. He's not mentally ill. Whatever he's saying is happening, he is actually experiencing." Only mum believed me. She told me this is cause she saw a ghost at her hospital once. Anyway, this happens again one night. Dad goes onto the hallway. Suddenly he runs back and flips on the lights. Goes into the spare room but turns on all the lights and refuses to turn them off. 3 days later he has a priest come bless the house, the garden, the buildings outside. Nothing changes. Around about 10 this shit just stops. The last event is my attic door. It's a drop-down door with a pull-down ladder, open on its own. But this was a pressure release door, required pressing on it or unlocking from other side to fall down. Sister and mother saw it happen as well. That was pretty much it. Several other paranormal things happened over the years. But since I'm ill and on medication, I've put it down to them, though not all are spooky. That's it really. I can tell them if you want.
Good Oceanon, enjoyed reading it. I'd like to know more, even if it's not as spoopy.
Sure. I'm just reading shit here myself anyway. Be like 20 or something. By now I'm 100% bedridden due to various problems. Some I know of, some I don't know of. I'm really depressed because my cat died like a year or something ago, but I have a new one, a young one, like a year old or some shit. Usually it's just me and mum, and at this time my mum would cook me meals and bring them upstairs for me. Help me out of bed if need be. Wash me once every couple of months. I shit you not. I mean a proper wash. I'd wash with a rag or some shit. I'm not a fat fuck like that Simpsons episode. But she had to go down to my sister's to help her do some shit, so I'm home alone. My dad left when I was like 8 and he refused to come look after me. The reason was because he was having another affair. I couldn't go live with friends as I had this new cat and I didn't want her to go feral or run away as she was awesome. And as awesome, she's still around. Anyway, one of my symptoms was being boiling out all the time, so had 3 fans on plus the windows fully open. 'Cause my cat was so young, she used to climb up outside my window, jump down and go out my door and downstairs. We had a flap for her which she could use, but she was a young cat full of life, so she went through the window. Anyway, I basically couldn't get up without popping loads of pills or using a stick, so I would get up once a day, make food, leave food out for her, shit and get back into bed. So one night I'm watching TV and she jumped down from the window as usual. She usually did this every day, so I just called out to her. Now my computer desk, the one I'm using right now, is to the side of my bed, facing the door into the hallway. So I'm playing vidya and have TV on, and I heard her jump down and see her out of corner of my eye do so. 10 seconds or so go by and she jumps down again. What.x? I pause my game, sit up, call out to her, and this time she replies with a meow and stops by the side of my bed. I get out of bed and I'm confused. She only stays in my room and meows if she wants food. So I struggle downstairs, slowly. She's gone down ahead of me. I think, has she missed her food? When I finally get down, she's eating her food as if she knew it was there and hadn't missed it. I get back into bed and don't think about it. It's only the next day I realize that the first time she jumped down, I didn't see her go out the door or hear her respond to my call. Secondly, she couldn't have gone downstairs, ignore her food, go out the flap, go around my house, it's a big house, outside, up 2 stories to my bedroom window and jump down again. Thirdly, she didn't jump down, then back up, then down again. I have yet to come to a conclusion on what happened. But a few weeks later I read up on time jumps, skips where events repeat themselves or people experience things just before they actually happen. I don't think it was my cat who had passed away either. All I know is she jumped down twice within 10 seconds of each other and I dunno how. I put it down to drug side effects, but it was odd as fuck that it hasn't happened again. Got more stories as well. Harder to explain though. The other story is pretty difficult to explain, but I'll try. Be 24 or 25 or some shit. I'm a bit healthier now, but still not enough to be on my own. Sadly still not. I'm a pathetic waste of a human, virgin too, so it can always be worse. Anyway, I'm able to go easily down to the bathroom. Medication makes me constipated, so I get out of bed at like 3 a.m. Been lurking 4chan. Sit down in the bathroom. Read some of my TG books while I pass the time. Finish up. Mum's gone to bed by now, the hallway light is off, timer, and shit. Finish washing my hands. Open the door. Pull the cord to turn off the light. Step out into the hallway. Suddenly I did an unconscious reaction. You know when you're walking down a crowded street and you shift your shoulder to not bump into somebody. I suddenly did this as soon as I walked out of the bathroom. My peripheral vision picked out a blackness, but blackness in darkness. The only light was my monitor from my room at this point, as I did this shoulder avoidance. I think, what the fuck did I just avoid, and look behind me to where I just was. Nothing was there. Get into bed and eventually go to sleep. The only other shit was be asleep. Suddenly get sleep paralysis. See a cliché scary girl in white standing next to my bed, you know, the face covered by long knotted hair and shit. I properly woke up and there was nothing there. It's the only time it's ever happened. The only other shit was a scary drug reaction, I hope so anyway. Be asleep. Dream a dream that the house is on fire. I'm boiling hot, hotter than I've ever felt before in this dream. Go get my mum and we go downstairs. I open the front door. It's boiling outside as well. I fall to my knees and shout, "The whole world is burning," or, "The whole world is on fire," or something like that. Suddenly I woke up. I'm not any hotter than usual, as I have 3 fans on and windows as I said. But I can't get back to sleep due to this vivid dream. Spend the next 30+ minutes yawning every 5 seconds. As you may or may not be aware, yawning is supposedly a way for your brain to cool down. My brain obviously was overheating due to drugs or some shit. Got so hot that I could experience how hot my brain was in my dream, despite not being hot when I woke up. It still freaks me out to this day. The other bad shit that's happened with me is me being asleep, realizing I'm asleep, but my body doesn't take a breath, so I'm not breathing and I'm paralyzed. That's scary shit.
Be 19 at the time. Broke college student in Leafland, so decided to get a shitty job. End up working as a door knocker for a lawn care company. Basically, I was a door-to-door salesman that didn't even sell anything. Anyways, it was my Friday shift, so I was working pretty late. I was in the neighborhood on the opposite side of the dog park to mine. Now, this dog park is surrounded by a huge forest. The northern edge of the forest was across the highway from my property, but, since there wasn't a highway on this side of the park, the forest was right across the street, a good 4 to 5 yards away from me. Now, 4 to 5 yards might not sound like much, but when you're 4 to 5 yards away from a spooky forest at night, it doesn't feel like a long distance. Anyways, back to the Greentext. Night is actually going pretty good. Have 5 leads so far. Fuck yes. PNG. Walking down a long driveway from a house I just got rejected at. Suddenly I see a shape in the forest. Just assume it's a coyote, as those are pretty common in my area, and from what I saw it was just about the right size. Still decide to be cautious, because it's a fucking wild animal. Decide to pick up the pace between houses. Do about 5 more houses. See that fucking thing again. From this glimpse, the thing looks a bit too big to be a coyote. It was long, and had a bony spine poking out of its back. Alright, maybe it's just a long, starving coyote. Or maybe a stray dog, I don't fucking know. Hear this odd gurgling coming from the woods. At this point I'm really fucking freaking out here. Pretty much booking it between the houses. I had, like, 20 more houses to do on that street, and I knew my supervisor would tell me I was bullshitting her. On my last 5 houses, I haven't seen anything in a while. Just assumed it fucked off to eat something, whatever. Finally feeling safe again. I know, what a fucking moron. Finish the houses, no new leads. Message my boss on the work tablet telling her I'm done. Look at the time, it's 10 o'clock at night. No wonder no one wanted to talk to me. Sit my ass down on the cold, soggy sidewalk. Playing some emulator on my phone. Probably playing Fire Emblem or some shit. Hear distant mumbling. Just assume it's one of my workmates. Don't look up from my phone. Hey man, I've already finished this street. You know how far away Chelsea is. I know, that's really fucking dumb. But hey, I was a stupid kid. I just thought, who else would be out here at the time? The mumbling stops and I start to hear rustling from the forest. My native blood finally kicks in and I realize, finally, that something's not right. Like a dumb ass I yell, "Is anybody out there?" No reply. Point my weak ass phone flashlight into the woods. A pair of eyes are looking back at me. Just assume the dog's back, because there's no way that's the thing that could be muttering. Turn off my flashlight on go back to playing Fire Emblem. The fucking mumbling starts again. It's definitely coming from the woods. Finally hear something audible. Hey man, I've already finished this street. You know how far away Chelsea is. Sounded almost exactly like me, but slightly off somehow. It was all garbled and fucked up sounding. Like if you put a toad in a blender or some shit. At this point I want to nope the fuck out. But the woods go on for a couple more blocks and this is probably the most well-lit area. Frantically text Chelsea, my supervisor, and ask how far away she is. She's driving, so of course I don't get a reply back. Decide to stand up and move a little closer to the house. It's a pretty rural area, so the houses are pretty far apart. I usually would worry about the homeowner getting mad at me for standing on their property, but this was an exception. Is anybody there? Comes out of the woods, in the same fucked up voice. Tactically shit myself and move a little closer to the house. Then I start hearing what sounds like a fucked up version of a bird call. What the fuck even is this thing? No, at this point it's not someone fucking with me. My ride finally shows up. Fuck you, Chelsea. Why are you parked so close to the woods? Run to the van and jump into the back. Make the mistake of looking into the woods while doing so. Finally get a decent look at the thing that's been harassing me all night. Looks like a fucking bipedal dog with matted, slimy black fur. I swear to fucking God. This is the part that still gives me chills. The thing fucking smiles and waves at me. Fucking smiles and waves. Tell Chelsea to haul ass out of there. She gives me a weird look, but still says okay. Don't talk about what I saw. Tell my boss I'm quitting as soon as I get to work. Well, that's the end of the story about the only supernatural thing that's happened to me. I haven't seen anything since, and I'm more glad than ever that there's a huge ass highway between me and that forest.
When I was a lot younger, I lived in this really bizarre house. I'd get really bad paranoia, anxiety when going downstairs by myself at night, among other things. But the weirdest thing was this one room in my house that no one would ever go into or even really acknowledge. I tried later after we had moved to talk to my parents and siblings about it and no one knew what I was talking about. I would have thought I was imagining it except that occasionally I'd find new stuff in the room and take it. I was young and the stuff wasn't there the last time I went in, so I figured it had been left for me. Kid logic, whatever. The room itself looked like it had been burnt by a house fire and if the lights in the room even worked, I never saw them on. Everything in the room seemed grayscale and just generally devoid of life, which was why the things I took from the room stood out so much except the cross. Pick related is the stuff I managed to keep across several moves. The cross was the first thing I took because I was young and it managed to shine in what little light the room got from the outside. After I took it, that's when the rest of the stuff began to appear. I know it's not especially scary but to this day, I have no idea what the deal with that house or room was. As a side note, the baseball, which was the second thing to appear after the cross, has looked like this since I got it. On another note, the clock timer thing hasn't worked since I got it. If I mess with it a lot I can sometimes hear faint ticking but that's all.
This is one time that I was home alone. To top it all off it was fucking Halloween night. Be me. 17 at the time. At the computer browsing, /b/. Go to the kitchen to get some leftover pizza. In my kitchen there's a huge window in the sink that sees into the backyard. Walk past it. Don't see anything, keep minding my own business back to my desk. All the lights in the house are off except my room. Walk past the living room. Scary as fuck. JPEG. Hear some noises on the porch. Raise the curtains to see what the heck is out. See nothing but some kids hiding in bushes. Seems normal. JPEG. Minding my business still. Hear something outside but not sure what it is. Probably some kids messing with me. Go outside to scare the kids away. There is no one to be seen. What the fuck. JPEG. I'm concerned about my well-being at this point. Turn to the backyard to see if I can see anything. Fuck, there's nothing too. The cat seems to be staring out the window. The cat doesn't move, just stares blankly. The cat has seen it. Whatever it is, I'm terrified right now. The first thing that comes to my mind is to call the cops. I have no facts or evidence. JPEG. They are going to be pissed because there's nothing to be seen. Decide just to stare at the window with the cat to see if I can catch whatever is out. 5 minutes pass. See somewhat of a mask coming out of a bush. Oh fuck. It could be a psycho fucking with me or a murderer. Grab a pellet rifle out of the garage. Going back to the window. Hear something moving. He's trying to get in. JPEG. OP chickens out and run to the neighbor's house. Stay there till my parents arrive. I'm terrified as shit. The next day comes. Talking to cops about what I saw. Suggest relocating temporarily. We do so. Never saw it again. I hope I never do.
This actually sort of reminds me of something that happened when I was in high school.
He is referring to a repost of the Deep in the Yukon story. Please check it out on Chas's channel if you haven't seen it yet after the video.
I was in a magnet program. These were basically just specialized programs at the various schools in my school district. That was ROTC based. All of our instructors were former U.S. military, some from each branch, though most were Army, and all of the programs had a focus on military aviation. The magnet program was called the Aviation Career Academy, and it was one of a couple magnet programs available at Arsenal Technical High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. Anyhow, I was in a few of the ROTC-based extracurriculars: Color Guard, Rifle Team, Drill Team, and Raiders. Raiders was an adventure program where we got to go camping, rappelling, etc. One winter, don't recall which year, I wasn't part of the cadet staff at the time, so it had to be either freshman or sophomore year. The Raiders had a camping excursion out to Mounds State Park, which is a bit northeast of Indianapolis, and is a park that features some pretty neat old Native American burial mounds, as well as a forest that had some kick-ass hiking paths. Anyhow, we were there for the whole weekend, arriving Friday night, leaving Sunday afternoon. So as soon as we got camp set up, all of the cadets decided to go exploring. The staff chaperones rarely went with us on hikes, since they were trying to teach us to be self-sufficient, so we set off into the woods. When night started to set, a game of Truth or Dare started up, but I didn't really have any interest in joining in, since there were only 2 girls on that trip, and neither was really my type. Instead, I tell them I'm getting hungry, and I'm going to head back to camp to get some food in me. I wasn't really. I was mischievous back then, and wanted to fuck with my fellow cadets. Anyhow, after wandering far enough away that I didn't feel like they'd see or hear me, I circled back around through a dry creek bed, trying to be as quiet as possible, since my goal was to fuck with them, and up a slope so that I could approach them from the direction opposite to the direction I left them, so they'd be less likely to think it was me. At the time I had an army-issue flashlight that I found during a summer bivouac we had at a National Guard base. It was one of those upside-down L-shaped lights that had a belt clip and a few different colored lenses for signaling. I swapped in the blue lens and set to work shining it toward the other cadets, who had taken up on a wooden bridge platform that spanned the dry creek bed. As I wandered around through the woods probably 100 to 150 feet out from them. Just far enough that I didn't think they'd hear my footsteps or be able to make out my shape. The girls started shouting and pointing toward where I was. I couldn't really hear much other than excited shouting, but I could see them pretty well since they had a lantern on, and I had a decent vantage point from the top of the slope. Most of them gathered on the side of the bridge and focused on where I was, but I noticed one of them, he was one of the seniors, staring in the opposite direction, who then starts pointing. That's when I see that there's a blue light on the other side of the bridge off in the woods, moving around. I just sort of figured at the time that it was someone else with a light like mine, or maybe one of the fluorescent lights that sort of glow blue. So I laughed to myself, turned off my light, and started to reposition so that I fuck with them from a different direction. I don't know why I enjoyed messing with my friends like that. I think I may be an asshole. As I'm wandering through the woods, light off, and as quietly as I can in combat boots, I start hearing something like the wind rustling in the trees, but it's close to the ground, and there wasn't even a breeze. I stopped to listen to see if I could figure out what it actually was, but started getting the feeling that I was being watched, and started to think maybe it was whoever had that other blue light that I had seen earlier. Then I fucking heard it. It wasn't fucking wind. It was like a dozen people whispering, but I couldn't make out any actual words. Sounded like when kids act like they're whispering, but are just making indeterminate noises like, "Ah bah sha pissed." And I start to freak, and take off back toward the rest of the cadets who were still on the bridge. I assume they hear me running through the woods toward them. I didn't turn my light back on, since I was in a panic, and I could see their light just fine still, but they all just take off full sprint away from the bridge back toward the camp. I fucking trip and roll down the goddamn slope, and by the time I recover, they're far enough away that I can't use their lantern light to navigate, so I flip on my flashlight and start running down the dry creek bed, since it was mostly clear of tripping hazards, and I was beat up from my tumble. Now when I was in high school, I was a decent runner. My mile was just under 6 minutes, and my adrenaline was flowing since I was in a panic from the weird whispers, but I caught a blue glint out of the corner of my eye, and saw that there was a blue light keeping pace with me to my right. I decided that I wanted to be around another person rather than running through the woods with whatever had made the whisper noises earlier, so I book up the bank of the creek bed toward the light, hoping it was one of the cadets or one of the chaperones, but the light just like dissipates. I don't know how to really explain it, but it looked like someone shining a blue light down the path, like I could see the bright spot and the beam, but then it sort of just broke up into mist and disappeared. I stopped dead in my tracks, and considered my options for a bit, and decided I was going to follow the creek bed back, since it was a little more straight than the main path, and the blue light had my nerves even more on edge. As I got back down to the creek bed, I saw that the blue light was back on the main path, so I booked it again. That's when I noticed that not only was I the only source of noise in the woods, which is not normal, but the other cadets were now somehow behind me on the main path. I could see their lantern light. I gave zero fucks about how that happened, and continued to book it to the camp. I wound up getting back before them, and sat by the fire to keep watch. When they got back, they were all visibly shaken by the floating lights in the woods. Apparently they had seen more of them, from what I could tell, at least 5 different places, and while none of them heard the whispers, they did all experience the weird silence that I did. Never did figure out what actually happened, but the whispers sounded low enough to the ground that the story about the Yukon gnomes or whatever sort of reminded me of this.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.